Greetings, everyone. That people still arriving. How lovely to look at everyone's face. Let's begin by enjoying a few moments of silence and stillness in our sitting. Oh, I see Robin has made it to Albuquerque with Joel. Let's recite the verse of the robe. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. The theme that I thought to reflect on today, if you had to make it into a small statement, which will be the name that will go with the video, on YouTube, you see the sort of names that are on each of the talks, will be
I'm gonna fix it.
what's that? I'm going to fix it? That's what you want, right? Cooperating with the inevitable. Cooperating with the inevitable. And the inevitable is that something goes wrong that you want to fix. Because the form in which I shaped what I wanted to offer to you today for your practice reflection and for our inquiry was a visual teaching. I put together some things that a storyline that I thought you'd want to follow that makes it very human, very poignant. And I spent a lot of time and effort making sure that it was beautiful and it worked well. And of course, it won't work on Zoom today for some reason. I can do a clumsy version of it, but it's not. And so we're gonna have to cooperate with the inevitable, and you'll see how that goes. And as a way to sort of frame the way I wanted to talk about it, was less abstract and intellectual, but a reflection of the life of one of my teachers. Yogen Steve Stuckey was a colleague and friend and former abbot at the San Francisco Zen Center. And I can't believe this. I mean, when I say this, I can't see Peg's face, but I'm sure she'll go, what? That it's been 10 years since he died. It's kind of a shock that it's been that long. Steve was a wonderful man and a great teacher. He was an interesting abbot at the San Francisco Zen Center who chose to do the IFS training and loved it as a way of teaching, like we often use along with Hakomi at Appamada. In September of 2013, he was in Austin and gave a talk at Appamada and said he wasn't feeling that great. And what I'm going to show and talk about is his path in terms of cooperation with the inevitable and the teachings that come from that I really want to reflect on. So I'm not doing this to just speak about Steve, and it's not just about his story. It's about how he demonstrated practice through his story. So I'm going to share my screen now so you can take a look. And most of the things that you would see here would come in steps and stages, but you're not going to see them in steps and stages. You'll see it all at once. This cooperation with the inevitable, and an image from long ago that Cassie had made. A cooperation with the inevitable is not you can see there on the bottom left that fate and determinism. And it's not like, okay, I'll cooperate. This is what's happening. It's not a matter of just dealing with what we're stuck with on that sort of philosophical existential level. It's also not on the right hand side where it says submission and passivity. It's not a psychological or relational way of just being a doormat. T.S. Eliot said, humans cannot bear much reality, which I really love that phrase. And the Zen teacher John Tarrant, there are no circumstances under which it's wise to refuse life. These are things that really are speaking about aliveness and the fullness that practice brings us, and how we're to meet what comes and do our best, as I've spoken about last week, making our best effort on each moment. The most potent inevitable that we have to deal with, and now it's not even sharing, come on.
We can see it, Flint.
But it hasn't changed for me. Has it changed for you?
Oh, no. Maybe if you click on the slide over to the left.
Oh, okay. There we go. Okay. Is an image of the Han, and the verse that we see on the Han, variously translated, the one that we often are familiar with, is great is the matter of birth and death. All is impermanent, quickly passing. Awake and don't waste this precious life. This is the inevitable that we all face. And so Myogen, Steve, was such a wonderful, sweet man. I wanted to use his story as a way to talk about this and how it will affect our actual lives. And we'll begin with his story in October of 2013, not quite 10 years ago. He wrote a letter, and I'm just excerpting very small pieces here for you. He said, "May this find you all healthy. My news is not good. Today, after 2 weeks of increasing pains and weakness, Lane, that's his wife, and I received the results of last Friday's CT scan. The symptoms and visual evidence are consistent with pancreatic cancer stage 4. So this was his first information that he had something more wrong with him, was a terminal diagnosis. His doctor said that if left untreated, he could expect to live 3 to 6 months with chemotherapy. It should improve the quality of life and perhaps double his life expectancy, but that's not long. My extended family has already been informed of the situation, and I look forward to your support as I rearrange my planned activities to take the best care of this body and all the relationships that are so important and rewarding, especially those with each of you." So he begins by offering his news and saying it's important to take care of our body, his body, our body, and that body of relationships that we live in. This is his first teaching, even as he shares his news. He added 2 poems at the end of that letter, and one of them was from Dogen. "To what shall I liken this life? Moonlight reflected in dewdrops, shaken from a crane's bill." So it's a very classic kind of Zen expression of the mystery, of the fragile and beautiful, exquisite nature of a life that's gone in an instant. But it's quite mysterious and a bit abstract in a way. And then he added some lyrics from an old blues song from Blind Lemon Jefferson. "I've got trouble in my mind, Lord, I believe I'm fixing to die. I got trouble in my mind, Lord, I believe I'm fixing to die. Well, I don't mind dying, I just hate to leave my children crying." The very ordinary, in fact, in the final Dharma talk that he did, because he loved to play his guitar and sing blues, he sang that song as part of his Dharma talk. But not very long afterwards, he wrote, and once again, these are just small clips. He said, "I've been surprised by the intensity of the pain I feel. In keeping with my current moment-to-moment practice of gratitude," and that was his fundamental practice, you'll see more of it here, "I would like to acknowledge all those many people from the 10 directions who are chanting for my well-being. I've been touched by the countless messages of love and support from my family, friends, and Sangha. And as I was rereading this letter, it reminded me of the theme of the reflection I gave at the first of the year. Who am I without you? Who are we without each other?" And in this moment, he was certainly reflecting back how touched he was by everyone's care and love and support, and how this is so essential for all of us all the time as we make our way, as he is in this image taking a pilgrimage with his staff. But only a month later, he said, "I've decided to not do more chemo. Instead, I've begun working with Memorial Hospice based in Petaluma as I continue to respectfully engage in the process of dying." Later in his note, he said, "One can't exactly say where such a decision comes from, but I feel more clarity and relief since deciding to focus on palliative care. It's been 8 weeks since I received my diagnosis. This is only 2 months later. Every day has brought new situations and opportunities for learning, and this will continue in the remaining weeks. I appreciate your understanding that my energy will continue to diminish as time passes, and so my ability to respond will become increasingly limited. I continue to be deeply grateful for all the love I feel, the chanting and messages of support for my well-being, and for the benefit of all beings in need. I love each and every one of you." One can't exactly say where these decisions come from as he respectfully engaged in his practice, but it offered him relief and some clarity. We chant at the end, each moment life as it is, the only teacher, each moment life as it is, including dying. Every day has brought new situations and opportunities for learning. That will continue, for which he's deeply grateful and full of love. As I spoke about Martin Luther King's Dharma last month, the inescapable network of mutuality is how we make our way with such dignity and grace. A few days later, it was Thanksgiving, and he wrote quite a long letter. I know these are a number of words here, actually, but this is a small version, but it's important because it is what the world needs now, I believe, which was another topic that we spoke about earlier in the year. He said, "With time today set aside for Thanksgiving, one may consider how best to use this time as a true expression of gratitude. What if we took that as our theme each day of our own lives? How best to use this time as a true expression of gratitude?" The practice of gratitude, for me, Yogan says, begins simply by saying the word gratitude and allowing whatever arises in thought to be regarded as lovable, no matter who or what it may be. This immediately cuts off the mind of personal preference and acknowledges that everything, absolutely everything, is fully participating in the fact of my existence in this moment. He doesn't say everything is wonderful. He says everything is fully participating in the fact of my existence at this moment. The challenge of this practice often slaps me in the face and sets off a series of seemingly impossible barriers. So there's this side too. These days, as you know, I wake up and say gratitude, and the next thought is pain in the belly, or cancer, or not fair, or Zoom doesn't work like I thought it would. To accept such thoughts with gratitude may be impossible and even contribute to further unwholesome states of mind. And he spoke about that, how to manage these kind of things. But it quickly becomes clear that one can create an infinite list of possible nourishments. And the mere fact of being alive tells one that positive, that is, life-supporting factors outweigh all others. If you're alive, the entire universe is supporting you. That's how you know it's supporting you, because you're alive. This is a basis for fundamental confidence in reality. And that's what I mean by this, a fundamental confidence in reality. Know that this life is rare and wonderful because it is happening right now with the full support of the universe. Wow. Including what we call dying, which is living. Once the above truth is clear, it's not difficult to be kind. One naturally wants to give back to that from which one has received so much. And since one has received and is now receiving so much from the mere existence of each other, it's a perfect time to say thank you, which is, I love you. I invite you to take up this practice today as a positive nourishment practice for yourself. And as you do, I feel even more gratitude and delight. This is what the world needs now, I believe. What he needed, what we all need, and what he's reminding us during a time when he is actively participating respectfully in his dying. My death asks so much of you, he said. Please accept this as a teaching for yourself and for our Sangha. Accept it with gratitude. Now his death becomes an offering that he's placing on the altar for all of us. There's a phrase that some of you have heard: if you want to understand suffering, learn to love. If you want to understand love, you're going to have to face suffering. This is the dual nature of our understanding of suffering and loving. I came across this image that you see on the left of Carrie Took, one of our students that many of you know, Donna Martin, and I certainly knew quite well. She was a Hakomi student and a deep practitioner that, in this case, she is at the desk at Chemin in the mountains in Switzerland in our retreat one year. She had breast cancer and ultimately died very, very young. I say young, in her early 50s. And I was privileged to be with her and her partner Mark and the Sangha and preside in part at her memorial service in London. And she certainly demonstrated this too, that understanding suffering, we engage in loving, and that loving helps us understand suffering in a different way. And the other image you see Steve being held up, Finn, but with his robes on, ready to step down as abbot because he knew he was not going to be able to complete his term. So on December 15th, as he could no longer be in person, not because of COVID, this is a long time ago, but he couldn't actually stand, he put on his robes, and in a ceremony of stepping down from the abbots, one of his Dharma brothers, Norman Fisher, who many of us know, said, "Birth and death is truly a great mystery, here in an instant, gone in a flash." And speaking to Myogen, he said, "Your courage and joy in the face of sickness and death is your best and most thorough teaching." We've all been receiving this profound Dharma and taken it to heart. Having received it, none of us remains the same. Being grateful on every occasion. From now on, we understand this. Thank you. None of us remains the same. Even after each inquiry, even after each practice discussion, even after each quiet, silent sitting, we're not the same. What remains? What changes? His actual brother, in that same ceremony, this image isn't of his brother actually, but it reflects it. His brother said, "Over the years, you, Steve, have taught many of us to grab and hold on, and that holding on relies on its partner letting go. He recalled that some years ago, members of our family had a summer get-together in Colorado, and we decided to go whitewater rafting. Another raft collided with ours as we navigated the rapids, and Steve tumbled out into the rushing water. As several of us grabbed hold to pull you back in, I happened to have hold of your ankles. The guide told me to let go. You couldn't pull him back in the raft that way. I had to let go to get you back on board. Holding on and letting go. What does it mean if I still got my arms firmly grasped around your ankles? Holding on and letting go. Holding on and letting go. His Dharma brother, his actual brother, and his assistant, just before Christmas Eve, says, "Cancer is a hard bedfellow to love. It breathes with rotten breath, steals all the covers, pushes one into the lumpy part of the bed, and then right out to the edge. It may not always have final or clear-cut results, and then again, it often does. Any degree of equanimity in this situation seems so difficult. And I watch as Steve continues to put his effort in studying his body-mind and working with staying with his particular experience of pancreatic cancer. I'm witness to his commitment to finding that unlikely and changeable place where mental clarity and pain control meet. I see his effort to show up and appreciate it. And in all of this, Steve is getting weaker, losing weight, not able to stand unsupported or eat much. And not sleeping for long stretches. It's hard. Cancer is hard. This is hard. May all beings find a place of ease and comfort during this often emotionally complicated time of year. Making our best effort on each moment. The theme of last week's reflections. And then finally, at the end of the year, Steve's son writes, "There will undoubtedly be a formal announcement, but I wanted to share with you that your friend and teacher and brother and my father, Myogen Steve Stuckey, has passed on early this morning. He was in some pain throughout the night, but had beautiful periods of calm and translucence. As I left him about 3 hours before he finally let go, he had the most beautiful smile on his face. His pain had stopped, and he seemed to be communicating something, a yes. That's what it felt like to me. His smile was truly peaceful, and it looked to me almost a secret smile, as if he had confirmed something he had long suspected. And it filled me with happiness and love and peace. I know all of you cared for him so much. Know that he is most certainly in peace and in our hearts with love and admiration and appreciation for all your support and love." So these teachings we've spoken about echo through his son's message, as well as this yes, this hi, like the monks we spoke about last week, saying yes even to the final transition. Maybe I don't need to repeat the story I've told several times of Blanche going to see her student, knowing he was about to die, and they'd studied tea ceremony together. And as she entered the room, he said, "Osakene," which is in the tea ceremony, a respectful statement of, "Please forgive me for going before you." But as these two practitioners sit with Steve's body, with great respect and some humility, knowing that his dying was full of respect and humility. And it's what we're asked to live with, even though we live in a world right now that doesn't seem to be filled with a lot of respect and humility, at least in public spheres these days. A few days prior, he wrote his death poem. This human body truly is the entire cosmos. Every breath of mine is equally one of yours, my darling. This tender abiding in my life is the fierce glowing fire of inner earth linked with all pre-phenomena flashing to the distant horizon. From right here now to just this, now the horizon itself drops away. Bodhiswaha. Each breath of mine is equally one of yours, my darlings. Many, many centuries earlier, a teacher and dying empty-handed, I entered this world. Barefoot, I leave it. My coming and going, two simple things. They got entangled. As his friends and family walk the body to the crematorium, cooperating with the inevitable, not giving in, not being submissive, but actively, as Steve has taught us, engage with each moment, each breath. And even following. His assistant once again tells us it's been 5 days since Myogen's death and 97 since his diagnosis. Hardly time for me to have any sort of perspective, and I've been thinking about him a great deal over the last days and weeks, and a couple of things stand out for me. And here are our teachings from today. The first is that he was a human being working with a very difficult but human situation, and woven throughout was the reality of Myogen's deep and abiding moment by moment practice habit. Make practice a habit, not something you do on a special day in a special place, but something that's woven into you like the threads of the okesa and as natural as hugging someone you love. The second is my new understanding of the words no birth and no death. I cannot say how anyone else felt who was in proximity to Myogen during his last hours, but as I make my way through these mountains, I feel that while he was, I was thinking of going to Tassajara. As I make my way through these moments, I feel that while he was doing what he called dying, he was also being born. He was being liberated. And we have that strange saying in Zen, die before you die. It doesn't mean to literally die. It means to begin to let go of all the things that we cling to, which were extra. One of Kobanchino said, if someone asks you what you're doing when you go to Sesshin, to an intensive retreat, if you were honest, you'd say, I'm going to die. But he said, you can't say that because then people would stop you. So you say, am I going to sit? To engage this practice so it becomes natural as a habit is, and to let go and to let go and to let go, to be born, to be liberated, which we call dying. His assistant says the third thought that I need to harness comes from Lane's statement 2 days ago. The only reason I was able to manage these last months was due to the fact that people were supporting me and us by chanting and praying and sending their love and support. Please know that all of those communal services and private moments of love and support were felt and cherished by Myogen, by Lane, by me. It could not have happened in the way it did without all of you. It's an expression of how suffering and love are woven together, how we make our best effort on each moment, how we know that I'm only me because of you. This inextricable weaving of our mutuality. My deep love, my gratitude is deep and abiding. My gratitude is deep and abiding. And so as we go forward, it isn't about just reflecting on this story. This is a story to see you reflect on your own life. It isn't a way to call forward endless stories of those around us who have died. It's how do you use this story, this reality, this teaching, this life to help you reflect on your own practice, your own letting go and holding on, how you're different, how love and suffering inform each other. This is what I'd like you to hold as you think about raising your hand and coming forward so we can meet in this living, in this dying, because both things are true. We're all born and get older from our birth, but we get younger towards death as the numbers get smaller. And this is the great matter. Back to the Han. This is what we're practicing for. And so, if you have something, I'm going to be a bit rude for a second, only because I know we're in the same business here, and I want to hear a voice anyway. Chris Ulrich, of course, if you don't mind raising your hand for a moment. You don't have to say much. I just want to connect with you because I know you're working, again, as you have for many years, with people, working with these teachings. So I wonder what's here now with us, if anything.
Well, I don't know if this meets what you're saying, but this story and this person came to mind very strongly as you were talking. And this was a man that I worked with when I was in the oncology unit at a hospital, my last job actually. And quite frankly, I fell in love with him. I fell completely in love with him. And he was dying of prostate cancer. And he would bring me little sculptures that he would make for his wife and for his children. You know, he would bring them into our sessions. And it's very emotional to talk about this. But, you know, there was this question of how to express love with a patient, you know, someone that I was working with professionally. You know, and there were times when I really held back, you know, when sometimes I just really wanted to give him a big hug, and it didn't feel like the right thing to do for a number of reasons. But anyway, the time came when I decided to quit the job, and I had to tell him, and he said, well, I was supposed to leave first. And I said, yeah. And so we stood there, and he looked at me, and I remember this moment that passed between our faces. I mean, we did hug at the end, but that wasn't the thing. But what this love that passed between us. And he said, I will look for you. And I said, I'll look for you too. That's the story that came up as you were talking.
And as I finished, I looked for you.
Mm. Mm.
And called you forward.
Yes.
You're not the only one, but thank you for your teaching. I was chuckling inside, remembering a moment many, many years ago in a retreat with Adyashanti. Some of you know that the teacher. And there was such quite a long pause when he was inviting people to meet him, and like I am, and very long pause. And he just said, after a few minutes, he said, now we're getting somewhere. Pam?
Good morning.
It's good to see your face and hear your voice.
Thank you. It is good to see your face.
Yeah,
and
something moving in you.
Very much so. It was very fitting this morning. I have long COVID. and it affects me neurologically. And so I know what possible paths are there. There are a lot in our family who have it. And so the last few days, it snowed a lot in California.
Surprising.
For the first time in a long time, I took my camera out. I actually got up early in the morning and went out. And mostly I drove and just sat in the car. And but the last day, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, the day before, I don't know. I actually got up, and there's a hill in town that is a good place to start working out when one's been a little more sedentary than usual, or when there's a hike, backpacking trip or something coming up. So it was the first time that I went up there since I got sick, and I made it. I didn't walk all the way. In one, I stopped and took pictures on the way. But it felt just so good. And then yesterday I was thinking, well, maybe I'm just like hanging on to this, and maybe my body isn't responding how I think, and maybe I'm just creating some of this fatigue and so forth that's going on. So this morning I got up and things were good for a little while, and then I started getting shaky, and then I started getting really sad, and then went to listen to this, which was absolutely beautiful. But I cried a lot during it because it touched me a lot, both for myself and where I would like to go still in my life while I'm still alive, and while I still have my faculties about me. And that could very well happen. But I also know the possibility, the other side. So it's real. And for me, one of the patterns that I've seen is when my body gets just really, really tired, I can still go on, but I start to cry over everything. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that was what touched me in the beautiful way that his life ended. Was both sad and so, I don't even know what to say. It just very, very heartfelt, and what a beautiful human being. Mm-hmm. And
what you're demonstrating to us right now, the very same thing, as you attempt to cooperate with the inevitable. And that doesn't mean laying down in the face of it or giving up. It means, how do I move with this? Mm-hmm. And the holding on and the letting go, some things you have to let go of in order to hold on, to get pulled back from the whitewater,
Very true.
Yeah, but thank you for coming forward so wholeheartedly. Just that bit of presence is important. And some of you don't know that Pam and I met in contemplative photography, so that picking up your camera again was an important part of your practice too.
It's heavy.
It is heavy, I know. It's heavier than the iPhone, isn't it?
Those are much easier, yeah.
Well, we'll now offer our best wishes for your health, your returning health. And our best wishes for your moving with your own body, as he spoke about, and relationships, whatever your health.
Thank you.
Yes. Carolyn, I saw that yellow hand come up. Where is she? There she is. And I thought, oh, first-hand experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I appreciated you warned me.
For those of you who don't know, I sent a message to Carolyn ahead of time and said, oh, I'm going to talk about pancreatic cancer. You can choose to be in this or not. Mm-hmm. But you were very forthcoming and saying, yeah.
Well, and it's funny. I think one of the things I'm pulling back in my own process of living and dying is it's that bird's eye view that sometimes it's hard when you're going through the process to be able to say, well, what's happening in this moment during this part of my journey? And, and I get to spend time with you a few times a month. So I think it's like right now, I definitely feel like I'm respectfully living.
Mm-hmm.
Like things are running out of time. But it's also this sense of my body is in the respectfully dying phase because it's telling me you can't do so much.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to plant a whole Zen garden this weekend. I was exhausted. Like I could have gone to bed at 7 o'clock on Saturday.
Did you just have chemo last week? No.
But it's just like I feel like I'm running out of time, and I don't know what the time's going to be. That's the thing. It's unpredictable. It's not as sudden as Roshi Steve. I mean, I'm so grateful.
We're all running out of time, but
Yeah.
yours is just a little more foreshortened like Steve's, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just not knowing what's the bird's eye view. And I would appreciate you and my spiritual friends for helping me see where I'm at on the journey, because sometimes you need that. Like this is your practice right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why we need each other, all of us, and in your particular case, to reflect back to you. It's like, show me who I am. Like in the old poem, touch me, like touch me, remind me who I am. Where am I? Help me know who I am and where I am. We need each other for that.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
almost gave a little instruction during the meditation. I didn't. But if I would have, this is what came to mind. As we're all sitting there silently, beautifully on the screen, I started to say, if it would feel comfortable to you and not raise anything uncomfortable, imagine that someone on the screen is sitting so close to you that you could feel the heat of their body against the side of your body.
Mm-hmm.
You know how you can do that? We're almost touching and you can feel the energy and the heat. Since we're not in the same rooms right now, most of us, feel what it's like to feel that close.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you notice as you imagine it now?
I feel just next to me, and it's warm.
Right.
Loving, and my son is on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, his warmth, his vitality.
And that's the aliveness that's always available to you. It's right there. Yeah.
It's amazing.
And thank you for your willingness, your courage, your vulnerability, your realness to come forward in this.
Well, thank you for all of your love and support, because I feel that gratitude boundlessly to you and so many in our Sangha over and over.
Yeah.
There's just no words.
Well, we'll continue with you.
Okay.
Cooperating with the inevitable. That's right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You might know these next folks, Flint.
Yeah. Looks like Kathy and Mom here. Can you raise the screen up just a little bit so I can see your face? You're just a little low.
Yeah, I'm trying to get myself unmuted.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, there I am. Okay. Yeah, hi. Yeah, what was coming up for me was in that silence when we were all silent. I don't have any particular thing that I know of that I'm dying from except being alive.
Yep.
But this new year there's been a shift for me in letting go of things and being more accepting. I guess practice.
Those things I was talking about, yeah.
Yeah, that helps. And that when I notice I'm doing that, I feel more alive. It's like that paradox of, you have to surrender everything to get
Yeah, to be fully in your life.
not yet, but but that letting go helps me feel more alive. And that seems, it is contrary to, what we're taught outside of these rooms.
Yeah. Grab as much as you can and hold on as hard as you can.
Yes. And it has to be a certain way. And it has to be, like that. And I find that when I let go of that, it sure does feel a lot better. and and I get to and it helps me be more able to let the things come in that I think the spirit of the divine or whatever it is, higher power, to show me that way. Like, well, what about this? And I realize when I'm grasping so hard, I can't allow those things in.
That's a really good point, because the contraction of the grasping
Yes.
is the barrier to the allowing.
Yes. It's like, let go and it will come. Open the door, open the heart, the mind, whatever it is. So that was just what came for me, and also because I wanted to talk to you.
Good. And mom's sitting there, and also straight behind you is where dad was. I mean, literally a few feet behind you.
Yeah. Yep.
And he struggled with the letting go thing.
He did.
And we could see how it added some pain for him.
Mm-hmm. And for us,
Yeah.
who were with him. Yeah, it was hard.
It was hard for him. It's not a criticism. It was just it's pain. I feel the sadness.
Yeah, and it was I didn't understand that because he was a Christian, and I thought, well, if you're a Christian, then you're supposed to like go see God and your loved ones that you've left behind, that have left you behind. And I didn't understand, but it's just fear.
Yeah, I think that he did hold those things close and dear.
Yes,
But
yes.
the body and mind aren't always that clear at the end. I'm sure there's a little just fear.
Mm-hmm. And he did seem to be kind of going back and forth through the veil at the end. And while it was scary and strange, it was
That was hard.
I'm glad that I got to experience that.
Yeah, I just did it this way.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank goodness there was that way, So anyway, thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. It's good to see you both.
Yeah.
Love you.
Love you too.
Well, it's appropriate now for us to use our voices to chant the 4 practice principles together, because they echo all of these teachings. And caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Thank you all for being here.
Apamata's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity, and your support makes a huge difference. There's a link for contributions on the website, and there's also a form that you can contribute directly for Flint. I'll post those in the chat. Thank you all for your presence, for sharing this life.